So what up, gamers? You know who it is. If you don't, it's your boy Shake. And I had something on my mind I wanted to share with you guys. I'm not the best example of success in the world. I don't have all the best advice. In fact, there's lots of people you ought to be reading about, or people that you ought to look into, people that are in your profession or in an area in life where you want to be. I always suggest people get a mentor. You know, somebody that is where you want to be soon and down the road, and you know, that can help guide you in that direction. A lot of times people say things like, you know, your parents will tell you you can't do something, or you want to be an astronaut, and once you get to be a certain age, you realize that might be kind of hard. It's expensive to be an astronaut. It's expensive to be a lawyer or a doctor. Why don't you try something else? Or maybe you don't fit the bill. But isn't it amazing that when you ask somebody who's actually in that profession, they always tell you that it's easy and they tell you exactly how to do it. You know, somebody that is, you know, in a career field that, you know, that you want to be in, find somebody who's there already and ask them. You know, they always seem to have the right knowledge. Sometimes your parents, because they don't specialize in that area, a lot of times they don't know the truth. They don't have the right answer for that. So, you know, always look for people that are where you want to be. And I definitely suggest a mentor. But one of the things that we talked about was, I just basically talked about my own experiences in terms of the growth and the changes that I go through, and also a lot of the mistakes that we make as people, you know, in general. But one of the things that I talked about, and one of the beliefs that I have, is that as you're going through life, you're going to go through certain stages, and in these areas, you're going to have areas of development. A good example of this would be when you're in your teens. I believe you're going through a learning stage. The majority of us are in high school, or you're going through a process of just learning a lot of different areas of and aspects of our culture. And you're learning about history, you're learning about science, you're learning about math, and you're just going through a long process of learning. And hopefully in that learning stage, you're able to kind of pinpoint what it is that you will find your strengths in. You know, areas that you'll find yourself capable of succeeding in moving forward. Usually when you're in high school, your parents or your teachers, your advisors are asking you to, you know, figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life. You know, at this point, you know, hey, maybe you found a strength in chemistry. Maybe you found a strength in law. Maybe you're an accountant. Maybe you like math and you figured out that you'd make a lot of money, or, you know, contribute to society in a certain area that you learned throughout your learning experience when you're in your teens. That's what people would hope. I wasn't so lucky. I wasn't able to figure out what it is that I wanted to do with my life while I was in my teens. I had lots of things that I was good at. In fact, I was pretty decent at art. I was also pretty decent at a lot of different sports. Nothing that I was able to perfect, but I felt like I was a great athlete. I was always a people person, the kind of guy that had a lot of friends and was really good at, you know, convincing people, persuading people to do the right thing and or do other things. You know, not saying the bad thing, but, you know, I was always able to make my point and or, you know, explain things really well to a lot of people. And so those were some of the strengths that I had, but nothing that I could really latch onto. So I was going through that whole development stage where I was learning and trying to understand things. In your 20s is when you start to apply what you've learned. You know, some of the things that you've learned, now you have an opportunity to apply it. And whether or not you've been taught correctly, or maybe you had the right guidance as a teenager, this is the time where you have to kind of put some of that to use. And in this particular stage is when you start to make a lot of mistakes. And I think in your 20s, those mistakes are forgivable. But, you know, you have to have your head screwed on correctly before you make enough mistakes that get you into a lot of trouble. A lot of times we don't have the correct amount of guidance. You know, we don't have parents telling us what to invest in, or we don't have, you know, counselors to keep us away from, you know, the wrong crowd. And, you know, a lot of times we make some mistakes. You know, we pick the wrong career field. A lot of times in your 20s, you pick the wrong wife or the wrong person to spend the rest of your life with. And, you know, a lot of these issues, a lot of these problems, a lot of these bad decisions happen in your 20s. And, you know, you have an opportunity to make up for those mistakes down the road. But if you have somebody that you can talk to, like a mentor or somebody that's been there, somebody that's further along in life, ahead of where you are, they can kind of help you, not make so many of those mistakes. They can help you get past some of those things. And, a lot of times, most of us coming up, we don't have anybody that we can talk to. In fact, I grew up just trying to not make the mistakes that my parents made. My whole goal was to just avoid the pitfalls that my father made, or some of the decisions that my mom made. And by doing so, I'm thinking that I'm living a better life, but it doesn't necessarily mean that. It just means that I avoided the problems and the issues that the people that came before me fell into. And hopefully I can teach my kid to take it to the next level, and actually succeed. And so this is just another example of a stage that you may go through where you're now applying what you've learned and making mistakes. And that's fine. You can get through that. I have to believe that when you're in your 30s, you start to understand some of the mistakes you made and you start to correct them. In fact, at this point in time, you're more keen to some of the shenanigans that are out there, some of the schemes, you start to get used to some of the problems. And there's lots of people that are still in their 30s that still act like they're in their 20s, making the same mistakes, applying what they learned in their teens and still not growing up, making a lot of adult decisions that a child would make. And a lot of people are stuck in that world where they can't advance. But really, in your 30s, you should be mentally, you should be ready and prepared to move forward. You should start making the right decisions. And by this time, you've met a lot of people that are already where you want to be. In fact, you may even have a mentor by now, or maybe somebody that you can look up to, or that you've looked into, or maybe someone you read about. Either way, in your 30s, I think that you start to move forward. You start to understand some of the mistakes you made, and if you're not in debt and you're kind of repaying some of those problems, some of those issues that you had before, you're at least, moving forward. You understand what you did was wrong, and now you're starting to succeed. I would think that in your 30s, you're in the prime of your life. You're actually moving forward at a good rate. And if you're not, I'd strongly suggest that you find somebody who can help you. From what I know, people in their 40s are pretty content with who they are. They're in their zone, so to speak. They've seen a lot of the things that life can throw at them. They've survived a lot of problems, and a lot of times they're in a success, or they're having certain success that is pretty consistent, and they know what to do to move forward and continue that success. I wouldn't really know too much. I don't have too many friends that are in their 40s, but from the parents that I have and the family members that I have, I understand. They tend to know a lot more than I do about what life has to offer down the road. And usually at that time, you're almost mentoring others. You're almost helping other people understand life better. I'd like to be successful at all of those stages and all of those different phases of life. And I strongly suggest that you do your best to understand these different phases and try to get somebody to help you move through them. I don't know if this talk really helped a lot of you guys, but I know for me that if I would have knew some of the things that I know now, probably wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that I made in the past, especially if I would have had somebody to talk to. So it's your boy Shake. I hope this video helped. As always, I'm extremely appreciative of all you guys that come through liking the videos and that even just watch the video. Share your opinions in the comment section, and as always, I'll holla at you dudes later.